So why didn't the Hokage Guard protect Minato on the night of Naruto's birth? Genma, Raido, and Iwashi are three characters that don't get a lot of screen time, but one thing we know about the three of them is that they composed the Hokage Guard of the Leaf Village. And yet, they were totally absent the night Minato was slain. And yes, those three were already the Hokage Guard during Minato's reign, so much so that Minato taught them how to use the Flying Raijin, even though they had to use it all three of them at the same time, so the jutsu could work. Still, they were pretty young at the time of Minato's death. They would be around Kakashi and Gai's age, so 14 years old-ish. To be fair though, Obito was also around that age and he was already attacking the Leaf Village, fighting Minato, killing him, and Kushina with the Nine Tails and everything, so you can do stuff at that age. And that's the thing, it's not as if they were completely surprised by this weird situation that happened. No, the Leaf Village and the third Hokage were completely aware of the dangers of Kushina giving birth. They knew the Nine Tails Cecile would certainly weaken because of childbirth, and they even had experiences with Mita Uzumaki before when she was giving birth to Hashirama's children, and they said that the seal on Mito almost broke free completely. So this would already be an extremely dangerous situation, even if you don't count Obito invading the Leaf Village and taking over the Nine Tails. Just the risk of the Nine Tails breaking free is already big enough, and one would think that for such a risk, the Hokage Guard would be present to protect the Hokage. So let's take a look at the countermeasures the Leaf Village implements for Naruto's birth. First and foremost, Kushina was to give birth away from the village, so that if the Nine Tails were to get out of her body, the destruction wouldn't be imminent and they would have time to prepare for the incoming beast. And obviously they weren't expecting someone to summon the Nine Tails right in the middle of the Leaf Village, but that's besides the point. They also erected a barrier around the place Kushina was going to give birth, a barrier that was supposed to prevent anybody from invading the place, and Hiruzen also stationed an omniversal outside of the place Kushina was going to give birth to reinforce protection. Now you may say, what would 3 Ambu ninjas do against the Nine Tails if the Nine Tails were to break out of Kushina? And I would reply with, not much. Naturally, the Ambu team protecting the area were for possible invaders. So the Leaf Village was expecting something like that. Oh, somebody can take advantage of the situation of Kushina giving birth, a Jinchuriki, the person who holds the Nine Tails, the most powerful asset of our village, to do something bad. For example, try to assassinate the Hokage, who's going to be very worried about his wife's situation and also preoccupied with redoing the seal of the Nine Tails to prevent the Nine Tails from coming out of Kushina. So Hiruzen and the others were aware of their vulnerability in that situation. And for most threats, the countermeasures they implemented would have been enough. They just weren't really expecting Kamui to be a thing here. Now, if they were to be stationed somewhere, would they be outside or inside of the facility? Because the omniversal was already outside, and for the protection of the Hokage himself, being inside would probably be the better option here. And not just the Hokage, but also Kushina, because Kushina was giving birth, therefore she was vulnerable by default. Even if the Nine Tails doesn't come out, she is not gonna be at peak fighting condition by any means, and there's also gonna be an eventual baby. But from the inside facility, Hiruzen assigns his wife, Biwako, and also a girl named Taji, who's supposed to be a powerful medic ninja to help with Naruto's birth, and also protect Kushina and Minato in a sense, because they're also ninjas that can be helpful if something happens. Obviously, they weren't enough. Obito kills the omniversal outside by choking them to death, enters the barrier with Kamui by simply phasing through it, and blitzes the 2 medic ninjas moments after Naruto is born, kidnapping baby Naruto and holding a kunai to baby Naruto's neck. And don't forget guys, even though he did all that, Naruto still told Obito he was the coolest guy. Anyway, that's besides the point. The point is, if the Hokage Guard had been in there with Minato, they could have done something about it. Blitzing 2 people that are worried about the birth of a baby is something, but blitzing 5 people, including 3 guards, is gonna be something completely different. And if Obito doesn't have the complete element of surprise, there's a chance that Minato simply stops Obito from kidnapping baby Naruto, and if Obito doesn't kidnap baby Naruto, he's not gonna be able to split Minato Minato from Kushina and not be able to summon the Nine Tails, and his entire attack would fail. So the series could have been very different if Minato survived and everything, and Kushina remained in Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Naruto could grow up like a regular kid. I mean, the child of the Hokage, but still. Let's just say things would have been different if the Hokage Guard had been there. But am I overestimating them here? Because sure, they're the Hokage Guard, they're supposed to protect the Hokage, but obviously none of them are nearly as strong as Minato. But I would still say that having 3 extra guards inside would have been good. Also, Genma's toothpick can probably solo Obito, like one shot, GG. Like maybe a couple of them, or maybe even all of the Hokage Guards would die during Obito's attack, but if they prevented baby Naruto from being kidnapped, they would already do a lot to save Minato's life in, the future, because we know what happens eventually because of what Obito does by kidnapping baby Naruto. Everything culminates with Minato and Kushina's deaths, and obviously the Hokage Guard would want to prevent that with all they have. But the point is not whether or not the Hokage Guard could stop Obito in any way or could make a difference here. The point is, why were they not there? Like, they know something dangerous is gonna happen. Why wouldn't the Hokage Guard be guarding the Hokage when they know a dangerous situation is going to arise? And that's the thing, oddly enough, the Hokage Guard has the tendency to do that. Let's go over the dangerous situations that the Hokages have been through that we know of. Well, at least after the Hokage Guard had already been established. First, we obviously have the Chunin exams thing when Orochimaru attacked and locked Hiruzen in a death match. Where was the Hokage Guard there? Well, Raido was actually nearby Hiruzen, so technically he was doing his Hokage Guard job, but he got dealt with very easily with a couple of kunais from the Sound 4 and wasn't very useful. Genma was preoccupied down below in the arena being the proctor of the exams and dealing with Baki, so he couldn't do much. He was locked in combat, and Iwashi was nowhere to be seen, to be honest. We have no idea where he was during Orochimaru's invasion, but that's fine, at least Raido was around, I guess. The thing is, I just realized there's a massive plot hole here, because remember why they couldn't help Hiruzen inside of that barrier, the Chunin exams? Well, it was because the barrier was not breakable, essentially. You couldn't pass through it, you just burn yourself. However, there's a jutsu that could bypass that, called the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. A jutsu that the Hokage Guard is capable of using, so they could simply have entered the barrier, gotten Hiruzen out of it, and just gotten reinforcements for Hiruzen to fight against Orochimaru and the 2 Hokage. Because we know that in the war, holy crap, I just realized! By making this video, there's a massive plot hole in the Naruto series! Obviously, they would have marked Hiruzen just like they marked Tsunade for the work. That's how they're able to transport Mei over to the Madara vs 5 Kage battle location, because Tsunade is marked, meaning they can jump to Tsunade by using the Flying Raijin. And obviously, yeah, the Hokage Guard that's capable of using the Flying Raijin jutsu would obviously mark the Hokage. That's like the most important thing for them to mark, so they can always be at the Hokage if something happens. And something was happening in the Leaf Village at that point. Now the thing is, Iwashi probably wasn't in the village, so they couldn't do the Flying Raijin with all 3 of them, and that's why they couldn't take Hiruzen out of the barrier. But why would Hiruzen send Iwashi out of the village if he knew something fishy was gonna happen during the Chunin exams? Your Hokage Guard, I guess. Kishimoto obviously came up with a Flying Raijin thing later for the arrangement of the Madara vs 5 Kage fights, but it kind of creates this massive problem. The Chunin exams that's only solved if Iwashi was in the village and present so they can use a Flying Raijin, enter the barrier to take Hiruzen out. But why would he be outside of the village when things were pretty dangerous in the village for the Hokage? I think this warrants an entire video by itself. Anyways, obviously they failed to protect Hiruzen against Orochimaru. When we go to the Pain invasion, where Tsunade was, in danger because the entire village was being attacked, and obviously Tsunade was in the village, and her being the Hokage is a prime target for the Akatsuki there, they were also nowhere to be seen, like, at all. During that entire arc, we don't see Iwashi, Raido, or Genma. And yes, Tsunade is protected by the Yambu, but it's not the Hokage Guard. I mean, I guess you could say the Yambu would be more powerful than him, but I don't think they're even more powerful than Genma's toothpick. No way. And after that, in the war arc, they're not protecting the Hokage, they're protecting the Mizukage, because Iwashi, Raido, and Genma are fighting alongside Mei against Black Zetsu for the first day and half of the second day of the war until they teleport Mei to Tsunade's location with Madara and everything. But that's more understandable because Tsunade was mostly not even fighting at all in the war up until she fights against Madara. She was just in the headquarters coordinating things, even though I would argue Tsunade would have been so much more useful in the battlefield because she's literally the best healer in the world and not a major shinobi strategist. I guess you needed a Hokage or like a Raikage and everything. I mean, they were both in there to coordinate stuff, even though Shikaku was doing all the strategizing. Anyway, I'm really baffled with that plot hole that I just kind of uncovered by thinking about it. Holy crap. But going back to Minato's situation there, I don't think that one is a plot hole. That one makes sense, actually. Because if you think about Genma, Iwashi, and Raido, they're strong, yes. They're stronger than the average ninja, I would even say. Especially Genma. However, they are not the cream of the crop in the Leaf Village. After all, Genma and Raido are Tokubetsu Jonin, or Special Jonin, which is a rank below Jonin, and Iwashi is a Chunin. And that's by Naruto Part 1. So obviously back then when Minato was gonna die, they may have been a lower rank even. I mean, I think they were all Chunins at least, so Iwashi didn't really advance further, but Genma and Raido could have gotten a small promotion to Tokubetsu Jonin. But what I'm trying to say here is that Minato knew they weren't the most powerful ninjas. He knew they could be very useful to be guards, and he taught them the Flying Raijin because he believed they had the potential to learn, so much so that they did. But he did that because teaching them the Flying Raijin would be very useful for a guarding situation. It's much better for you to escape with whoever you have to protect than trying to protect them by fighting. Like what they should have done with Hiruzen versus Orochimaru. I'm still thinking about that. But what likely happened is that Minato found these boys, essentially, that he saw some potential, made them his Hokage Guard, even though Minato knew they weren't gonna protect him from any major threats, especially because the jutsu they can use to protect people, which is the Flying Raijin to run away, he can use it by himself. So they would only be useful in a scenario where Minato is unconscious or something like that. And the thing is, it's much more likely that Minato was expecting the Nine Tails to come out. And that would be a massive danger for whoever was inside that facility. I mean, obviously Kushina had to be inside because she was the one giving birth. He had to be inside as well because he was the one who's going to keep the Nine Tails sealed tight after the birth. And the other two ladies that were assigned by Hiruzen because they were good medic ninjas and they knew how to handle a Jinchuriki giving birth. So Minato probably thought the young ninjas who were his guard, that he was training to become stronger for the next generation pretty much, wouldn't be very useful there because the danger would be the Nine Tails coming out, and what are they gonna do against the Nine Tails? Let's be real here. If the Nine Tails comes out of Kushina there, it's GG. I mean, there's nothing they can do. I guess you could say they could teleport somebody to safety with their combined Flying Raijin, but Minato can also do that much faster by himself. Even though I guess you could say they would be very good to warn the Leaf Village, like if the Nine Tails comes out, they can use the Flying Raijin, go straight back to the Leaf Village, warn the third Hokage and say, oh, the Nine Tails is coming out, prepare yourselves. And why would a Minato assign the kids to be outside with the Anbu? Well, that's because the Anbu tends to operate by itself with only Anbu members. Also, the Anbu members will be much more experienced than them, so Minato probably thought, yeah, it's better to leave the Anbu with the outside with possible people trying to come in, and putting them inside would just increase the chances of somebody getting injured or dying in the process with Naruto's birth if the Nine Tails comes out, especially because Genma, Iwashi, and Raido were kids at that point. And we see that when the Nine Tails is actually attacking the Leaf Village, the higher-ups of the Leaf Village keep the younger ninjas away from the Nine Tails to protect them. It's actually Kurenai's dad that's rounding them up and keeping them there without fighting the Nine Tails, and he says that because the Nine Tails is a domestic affair and not a war with other nations, the kids should be out of it. And I don't really understand that logic. Like, you're okay sending kids to fight a war against other nations, but fighting against something domestic, you're not up to do that? What? I don't understand that really. I guess they're trying to protect the younger generation from the Nine Tails, but sending them to battlefields in the Third Great Ninja War is gonna be very dangerous as well. But I guess they saw sending them against the Nine Tails a waste of their young talents. So maybe Minato had the same mentality, because Naruto being born is a domestic affair, the kids shouldn't be involved, and he would probably want to keep Naruto's birth pretty quiet and wouldn't want to assign a mission to a lot of people to protect Kushina, because if more people know, it's more likely that Naruto's birth location is gonna leak, and also the intel that the Nine Tails' Jinchuriki's seal is going to weaken so more people can try and attack. So keeping that information only to very specific people like Anbu members, the two people that are gonna help with Naruto's birth, and the Hokage, is probably gonna work better for the safety of the village as a whole, but obviously they weren't really expecting Obito, a guy with Kamui, to go and attack them. But yes, in hindsight, it would have been better if more people were there to guard Minato, Kushina, and Naruto, because Obito obviously attacked, even though, I mean, Obito wouldn't have much of a problem dealing with Genma, Raido, and Iwashi. But the thing is, could they have delayed Obito a second more so that Minato can prevent Obito from taking Naruto? That could have been impactful, actually. But we'll never know. This was a mistake on Minato's judgment. Him wanting to protect his young guard may have caused his own death and several problems down the line that Naruto's gonna have to deal with. Now, from a storytelling perspective, obviously they weren't there because they were alive in Naruto Part 1 and Naruto Shippuden, and if they were involved in the attack, they would have to die for the story to work, because nobody could know that somebody else attacked the village. The entire Leaf Village thought that the Nine Tails attacking that night was a quote-unquote natural disaster, which is probably some cope that the third Hokage came up with so they wouldn't blame Naruto too much, but it didn't work. Did it? I mean, he obviously knew all along it was because Kushina's seal weakened, but he probably told the village, yeah, it was a natural disaster. It happens sometimes. It's just a bad thing that happens, and Naruto was our savior, but nobody really bought that. Then Naruto was a savior. They kind of hate him for being the vessel of the Nine Tails, and it was dangerous because of that. That's the entire story. I don't have to explain to you. But it was important for the masked figure, Madara Uchiha, quote-unquote, to remain a mystery, because everybody Obito interacts with that night dies. So the secret doesn't leak out. They still think the Nine Tails attacked because it was an act of God, essentially. If someone had survived Obito's attack there and actually saw the masked man, they would know that something was up. And Uchiha, or a guy with a Sharingan, attacked Minato and got the Nine Tails out of Kushina. What the hell? We have to investigate. Obviously, this wouldn't work for the story Kishimoto was going for. And because the Nine Tails attack was such a mystery for the Leaf Village for such a long time, that also started to make people suspect of the Uchiha clan itself, because they're the only ones capable of controlling the Nine Tails with their Sharingan hypnotism. And that all contributes to the eventual Uchiha clan massacre. Yes, it was an actual Uchiha who did it, but the Uchiha clan itself had no idea. So naturally, for all those reasons, Genma, Iwashi, and Raido couldn't be there to see the masked man attacking Minato. It was either that, or they would have to die, just like the Anbu did, just like Hiruzen's wife, and Minato and Kushina. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't, definitely ring notifications, this is very helpful to me and to you so you get the videos. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and let me know if you want me to do a video on that plot hole I found out. Click on the video showing up on your screen to watch another cool Naruto video, and thank you so much for watching.